A proud supporter of this program, Riverbend Food Bank's vision is a hunger-free Iowa and Illinois.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Whelan Presley Funeral Homes are located in Rock Island, Milan, and Reynolds and are proud supporters of WQPT.
Short-term help for people having trouble facing the day, how a new crisis stabilization program works, and the United Way creating a community soundtrack in the cities. Surveys indicate improving mental health is one of the greatest health needs in the cities, but all too often people can fall through the cracks. Perhaps their needs are short-term or not as severe as they think. But that helplessness can grow into something much greater if not treated. Vera French Mental Health Services has expanded 2 programs in our area that is giving a rapid response to those who need help. That could leave an impact on you or someone you love. And joining us is the Chief Operating Officer of the Vera French Mental Health Center, Denise Pink. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the crisis stabilization program that you have started. Basically started mostly in July. It's really built up since then.
Right.
Tell me about this.
So we started it up the very end of July, and it's been a program that's been in the works now for a while. Our mental health region, which consists of 5 counties in eastern Iowa, has funded us to provide crisis services for people who need short-term stabilization, and it avoids costlier levels of care, such as going through the emergency department or inpatient hospital stays, or even police involvement and going to jail. So it's been a really nice option for persons that may be feeling suicidal, may be experiencing anxiety, depression. We've seen a real gamut of people use our services in the past about 6 weeks that we've been open now.
Well, and let's be honest, from day one, you've had clients, you've had people that you've been able to help.
Absolutely. So we get calls from all over. We've had mobile crisis, police, hospital. We get some people that self-refer or therapists refer to our services, and we do a phone screening to make sure appropriate for services. We're not a medical level of service, so if there's anything medically going on with the person, we need to determine that and get them to the appropriate level of care. And then we tell them, what needs to come in. They bring their belongings, their medications, and we get them set up and stabilized, and then they have contact with a mental health professional, so a therapist, a counselor, every day to work on a stabilization and discharge plan and link them with appropriate resources and referrals.
Is this based on another program? Because my understanding is the nearest one is Cedar Rapids, so that anybody in this area that needed this immediate rapid response, so to speak, really it wasn't available.
Correct. So this is something that was put into legislation a few years ago when we were doing development of adult mental health services, but functionally and monetarily couldn't get up and running until this year. There is also a peer respite home in DeWitt, Iowa, which is staffed by other persons with lived experience with mental illness, which mirrors our program. It's just a little lower level of care versus licensed professionals being available each day.
This is more than just a person have a panic attack, right?
Correct.
So tell me about that, because like you said, it could be deep depression, it could be huge anxiety issues. There's a number of different factors.
Right. We've seen a variety of things. We've had people come in who just came out of jail, had no place to go, needed to get hooked up with some resources, some employment services to get back on their feet and into housing. We've had people who have had grief and loss recently and just have felt very overwhelmed by that and needed some extra support. We've had people with some substance use disorders where they're really wanting to get stabilized and hooked into substance abuse services, which we've been able to provide. We've had people with just some very paranoid thoughts coming through. We had one that had some assault trauma that really did not feel safe being alone. So
understandably,
we see a real big variety.
Well, Well, it's a 5-bed facility.
Yes.
And it's a 5-day maximum, but that can be extended. How does that work?
Correct. So we're really looking for short-term stabilization,
Exactly.
3 to 5 days. However, because the region is funding us, we do have some flexibility with length of time for services, which is very nice
Yeah.
because depending on where they need to be linked and what services they need to be hooked into, sometimes it can take longer than 5 days. And so we really work with people on a case-by-case basis to get them what we need for them to be successful long-term.
Depression is a tough thing for the person who is suffering from the depression to really recognize and seek help oftentimes. You said referrals, but how else are you finding people that are good candidates perhaps for a short-term intervention?
So we get a lot through Mobile Crisis, which has started up in our region. The Eastern Iowa Crisis Line can deploy Mobile Crisis when that is warranted, and then if they do need some further stabilization, they will call into the crisis house. We also get from other therapists throughout the Quad Cities who may have a client that is struggling. We've received calls from emergency rooms where they don't meet inpatient criteria for admission, but they sure could use an extra set of eyes on them and help stabilize them before going home.
We're about to talk to the United Way in the next segment, and mental health is one of the health issues that they've really focused on as well. It's kind of like the safety net that some people don't know exists and in some cases doesn't exist. We've also heard so many stories about how Iowa, the state government, is changing the way it deals with mental health in the state. Is this a bit of a safety net that wasn't provided before, and is this a little more recognition towards mental health that you think was perhaps not used before?
Correct. We really are part of the safety net of providers that will take people regardless of insurance or income or ability to pay, which, like I said, the region has been very helpful in funding this, and it just wasn't available. Legislatively, it wasn't in place. There weren't providers in place. There weren't systems in place to address that. And so the people that we would see now would go into the emergency department, would go into the jail system, which is really more costly in the long term
Absolutely, yeah.
for taxpayer dollars. So this really is a nice short-term stopgap measure.
Well, and let's talk about that because is mental health becoming less stigmatized right now? I mean, are people actually seeking help to a greater extent?
You know, I think mental health has been more in the forefront of people's minds more recently, and you know, say what you will about millennials, but they're very much champions for mental health and a balance and healthy living, and I think that really has brought to the forefront the need for funding for services for mental health and to improve mental health on the front end versus waiting until it is so bad that all these high-level services need to be deployed.
I mentioned that there's 2 programs that are relatively new in the area. In April, you opened the Peer Support Center at the New Carroll Center, we'll call it that right now. Tell me a little bit about that and how that has really been making an impact in the community.
So we opened a peer drop-in center as part of our Carroll Center programming, and it's right downtown Davenport, which has been very nice for us. Anybody can come in and talk to a peer that has lived experience with mental health issues. They don't have to be a Veer French client. They don't have to want to engage in services, but it's just a place for them to vent. And then if they need some further assistance, they also can be hooked up with some resources, given referrals, work with some of our other staff, and get the services that they really need.
Now, the program had existed elsewhere, but now you have opened it up at the old United Neighbors Center, which is as you're going down the hill on Harrison Street. So tell me what the difference has been now that you have a little larger facility. I mean, and you've moved more downtown. Is that facilitating more people? Have you seen an increase in people seeking the service?
Absolutely. It has given us more space, and we have co-located several of our programs currently existing into that location. We have our assertive community treatment team, our homeless outreach coordinator, intensive psychiatric rehab, medication management, and psychoeducational group programming. And all of that works together with the Peer Drop-In Center, and we are seeing a higher volume of people come through. We also serve free lunch there Monday through Friday, and anybody is welcome to just come in and get something to eat.
Because the theory is some people may not want to see a therapist. Some people may not think that they need to see a therapist at this juncture. Maybe they're seeing one on the side. The peer, that idea, how does that work?
It's people helping other people. It's somebody who can be very empathetic to their situation. It's really meant to be very non-threatening. They are not licensed professionals. You know, they're not going to be committing anyone or doing any of those kinds of things that people, I think, tend to be a little scared of. It's just a very low-level conversation, hey, how can we help you approach.
And are these just for adults? I know that the crisis stabilization program is for 18 and over.
Yes.
Is the peer counseling also for adults, or are younger people involved in that?
Really, anyone can walk in. We're more geared toward adults at that location, but we have had people bring children in with them or had some teenagers stop by, and we will work with people. We're not going to turn someone away just because they don't make the 18 or older threshold. So we would make sure that they got to the appropriate places.
It seems like what you're really doing is two things. Your outreach is much different now.
Yes.
And also that you're trying to break down the barriers that prevent somebody perhaps from seeking help. Is that a sea change for mental health professionals?
I think it's something we've always wanted to do and just had not been able to do it. We are creating more sustainable cooperative systems in the Quad Cities than we have seen in the past. The real concept is we want there to be no wrong door. We want somebody to come in wherever they're willing to come in and get the services they need. And that really means cooperating and working well with a variety of entities in the Quad Cities to make that happen. And I think we are seeing systemic change along those lines.
I was going to say, how do you measure the change? How do you notice that there is an impact right now?
Well, that's the million-dollar question,
Absolutely.
right?
Well, because I would think there'd be two ways to measure it. One is that you are seeing increased participation, which means more people are seeking you out. But the other would be less tangible, and that is if you're really making that difference.
Right, and there has been a Quad City Behavioral Health Coalition that is formed with a multitude of agencies that have come together to work on exactly those questions. And so we are working on collecting data from all the safety net providers to try and quantify some of those things. You know, how many reduced ER visits are we seeing now that we have all these extra services? What are we seeing as far as wait times for people to get in and see therapists or prescribers?
As well as personal stories. I mean, you've talked to people, you've seen how they have, do I say grown, or how they have healed in the period of time that they've seen your services?
Right. The personal stories are always really
Absolutely.
the most impactful. You know, we've been able to take a woman who got out of jail and help her get hooked up with Dress for Success. We helped her find employment, get transportation, get set up in her own apartment. This is someone who would have been out on the street and not had any of these things hooked up because she came out with no resources. And so there have been some really great success stories along the way.
And anybody seeking your service, seeking your help, I mean, it's very easy just to type Vera French in Google and find you right away.
Absolutely, and our website lists out all our different programs and services, and when in doubt, just pick up the phone, give us a call. We're happy to answer any questions.
Denise Bink, the Chief Operating Officer for Vera French Mental Health Center, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it so much. Still to come, using the soundtrack of the cities in an effort to raise more than $7 million. But first, Laura Adams is ready for an autumn filled with fun activities for you, your friends, and your family. Here's Laura out and about.
This is Out and About for September 23rd through 29th. It's time for the Quad Cities Hot Air Balloon Festival at the Rock Island County Fairgrounds, September 27th through 29th, while Bishop Hill's Fall Festival, York Brooks Dargana, takes place September 28th and 29th. Plus, the Quad City Vintage Rods 48th Annual Car Show is coming to Black Hawk College the 29th with over 400 vintage cars. Dogs get in on the fun too at Dogtoberfest. Free doggy bags for the first 150 visitors September 29th at Crow Creek Dog Park. Ladies, Gilda's Club Quad Cities hosts Diamonds and Divas at the Putnam Museum on the 26th, and the German American Heritage Center opens their newest exhibit, Witness to the Revolution. The Figgy hosts the Mexican Colonial Collection at the Bettendorf Public Library on the 25th, and Orion is the location for Eat in the Street with music by Moe's Garage on the 28th. Music on the Mississippi at Riverside Park features River City 6 on the 23rd, and Mercado on 5th, an outdoor night market, takes place the 27th in downtown Moline. Quad Cities Oktoberfest is coming to the First Congregational Church in Moline, and the Julius Quartet will perform at Bettendorf High School September 27th. It's the semifinals of the Laugh Hard Challenge at the Speakeasy September 28th, while on the Circa 21 main stage you'll find the musical Singing in the Rain. And Gruesome Playground Injuries, not your typical love story, plays at the QC Theater Workshop through October 6th. For more information, visit wqpt.org.
Thank you, Laura. Mo Carter has been described as a freight train of energy with a bold, soulful voice. She's part of the group The Veelies, but joined us with one of her own solo works. Here's Mo Carter at the Black Box Theater in Moline with an original called Hardware Store Man.
time, so much of my vision wrapped around the family vine. We belong to a time and place, and you are magic in a rustic space. 100 years and 40,000 days, we cannot measure the weight of this place. Between the here and Union Boulevard, time goes fast and slow, you're working hard. When you're a daughter of a hardware store man, fifth generation, were you part of the plan? An old brick building displaying my name fades to time, slowly moves out of frame. Things in life open, close, and bend. The final chapter's only one book in. I know sometimes there was just too much on your plate. You never said a word, you never complained. When you're a daughter of a hardware store man, fifth generation, were you part of the plan? When you're a daughter of a hardware store man, ever proud, you know this was my heartland.
Davenport musician Mo Carter at the Black Box Theater with Hardware Store Man. A few weeks ago, Mo Carter took to the stage for another performance. This one was part of the United Way's kickoff ceremony called Amplify Quad Cities, the soundtrack. It was held earlier this month with local musicians singing original songs highlighting personal stories. And Mo Carter performed a song called Grow about a woman named Rhiannon who overcame drug addiction with help from a local agency funded by the United Way. And joining us is Blake Freese, who's communications manager for the United Way of the Quad Cities. What a great night you guys had at the Rust Belt.
It was incredible. It was incredible. We accomplished our goal for that night of putting a face to the impact that people have when they support the United Way.
The annual fundraiser for the United Way is so critically important for so many different agencies. Your goal is about $7.5 million. That's a healthy number.
It is, and quite frankly, it's an ambitious goal and not quite enough for all the things we could do. But it's what we need right now to move forward on the things that we do want to accomplish.
So explain to me, Amplify Quad Cities, the soundtrack.
Yeah, so what happened is we paired with River Music Experience, which is a great nonprofit here in Davenport, and they selected local musicians that we paired with real people who have benefited from the programs and agencies funded by United Way, and they wrote original songs about those people and shared them at the kickoff event. And the idea behind Amplify Quad Cities, the soundtrack, is that we need to be able to talk about what it really means to support the United Way and what it really means to have an impact in the community. And the best way to do that is through stories. I have a story, you have a story, and finding a way to tell those stories and show what that impact looks like was a really big deal to us.
Well, and let's talk about, first off, you can, I can't see, but you can hear a lot of these songs. There's what, 6 or 8 songs? I mean, there's quite
6
a few.
original songs, that's right.
Exactly, and they're all, like you said, original, really poignant, they cut straight to the bone. I mean, they tell a great story, and you can find them at the United Way Quad Cities website. We'll tell you a little bit about that in just a moment. But the people that were pointed out, the people that were amplified, so to speak, in these songs, it really does underscore what the United Way's new mission is all about, is it not?
Yeah, so I think our overarching mission is the great place to start, right? We want to provide opportunities for every Quad citizen to live their best possible life. Now, that's a very simple sounding mission, but a very big, ambitious task. And the way we do that is through 3 focus areas: education, income, and health. And each one of these stories falls into one of those categories.
And in so many ways, the United Way really changed its focus over the last 3 years to do just those 3 areas. How do you measure the impact?
Well, we set our goals in these areas, and we call it our bold goals because we expect bold change. And it comes down to education, income, and health are 3 things that if you have those, you have the building blocks to live your best life. So what does that look like? In education, that looks like making sure that kids are ready for kindergarten, because the more ready they are for kindergarten, the more likely they are to be reading at a 3rd grade level by 3rd grade. Why is that important? Well, 1 in 3 kids right now in the Quad Cities is not reading at a 3rd grade level by 3rd grade. You are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school if you don't hit that benchmark by 3rd grade. So we're trying to identify issues early, centered on each of these focus areas, and really make an impact right at the beginning and set people on the best course possible.
Because the other point about the reading by 3rd grade was also to keep kids in school, well, you know, to the graduation rate to increase that, and the dropout rate to really bring that down. And the United Way, along with other community organizations and the school districts as well, has been seeing a lot of progress in that area. I mean, when you start seeing that progress, do you somehow think, okay, we're onto something?
I think so. I think what it really comes down to is we're in a unique position that we partner with so many agencies, organizations, school districts, and we get a full view and we can spot trends across the region. Right?
Let's be honest, United Way is also very active in studying the populace of the Quad City area.
Very much so.
You really know the needs.
Very much so, and sometimes at the individual school level, it's harder to spot, and do you know, is this something that's unique to us, or is this a trend overall? So we are in a great position to be able to work with a lot of people, find a lot of information, and identify these key indicators such as kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade reading level, and that helps us make sure that we're tracking efficiently. And when we set our bold goals, we want to put numbers to those because we want to be held accountable for them.
Well, and as you said, there are 3 areas. We were talking about education, health issues, and income. Another stunning statistic, the United Way says 37% of residents struggle to pay for their basic needs. That's more than 1/3 of Quad Cityans struggling just for basic needs. This is during a good economy.
It is, and I think that we have to be careful about how we talk about things like poverty, because people hear poverty and they have one vision of something, when in fact we know that you know, how many people are one medical bill away from not making rent? How many people are in a situation where they're not necessarily below the poverty line, but they're in danger or they're at risk? How do we avoid that, or how do we solve for that? Well, we find we know through our research that more than half of the available jobs in the area are middle skill jobs, right? So they require some sort of training post high school. And we know that there are only 30% of folks that can fill those jobs,
right,
or that are able to fill those jobs. So fixing those gaps is how we address that issue.
Well, and the other area that we were talking about is health issues, and our first segment talked about mental health. There has been, when you're talking about areas where safety nets are desperately needed, healthcare really seems to be one of the top priorities in the Quad Cities area.
Yeah, very much so, and mental health is one of those. You know, I heard the woman speaking earlier that we're making progress and we're on a good track, but we also know that 1 in 4 young people in the Quad Cities have battled depression, feelings of loneliness, and you know, what's the real cost of not addressing that? Right? Well, for somebody like me with 3 children, the status quo means I better hope that my kids are the 3 out of that 4, right? How likely is that? Well, we just can't accept that. So it's great to have those organizations in the community doing that work, and it's hard work and it's long overdue, and we're excited to be able to contribute in that way.
We have just finished the Fall Day of Caring, where you had 1,900 some volunteers worth some 9,100 hours of volunteer time just to send throughout the Quad City area. I mean, it's done twice a year, but I mean, tell me about the significance of this program.
The significance of, well, for one, it's a great barometer of the energy in this community and the desire to help and do well. The involvement of our business community, right? Because a lot of folks were given time from their job to be able to do this as a group. What I loved to see is that we had more than 100 opportunities to volunteer, and every one of those had volunteers in it.
And you're talking not only like fixing a fence or doing some plantings, it also involves spending time with kids and some mentoring as well.
Absolutely. It covers everything from, mentoring, reading to young children, to pulling fences out of the grounds and doing flood repairs down at Credit Island. There's so many things, the full spectrum of work that people need a lot of help in different ways, and to see the community come together in such a big way in one day and offer that help it's inspiring.
Well, the fundraising campaign, of course, is ongoing right now. It's very much corporate driven, but also there's ways that individuals can help out. How can a person actually be perhaps a better community member through the United Way?
Well, I would love for them to visit unitedwaycampaign.org. Which is also where you can find the music that you referenced earlier. And that will show you where you can go to our volunteer hub. We always have opportunities that need filled. There's an area there where you can give, whether it's your money, your time, information to go back to your workplace. If your workplace is not involved yet, we'd love to have that conversation as well. So that's really a great portal to start, where you can get the information you need, because we know that there's a huge appetite in the Quad Cities for people at an individual level to make a difference, and our job is to connect as many of those people as we can.
And it really does kind of underscore that the individual can make the difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what the soundtrack is all about, right? You can change one person's story and one person's life with what seems to you or I maybe the simplest of contributions, because it helps fund programs that change people's lives. When you go to this concert, or if you went to this concert and you hear about somebody who's in and out of jail and loses her children and doesn't have the education or the job skills to get them back, finds an organization that not only provides treatment, but provides that skill, that learning job skills, and puts her in a position to have her children back, be enrolled in classes, pursuing her own business. It's amazing to see. That's not as unique a story as we might think it is. It's something that we can all help by just contributing to the people out there doing good.
And to realize that's one of our neighbors.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're on the bus with you. They're probably at your job. You see them every day. Sometimes the most impactful community you're part of, you don't know you're part of it until you hear those stories.
Blake Freese, Communications Director for the United Way of the Quad Cities. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And you can once again hear the songs featured by the United Way at the organization's website. Amplify Quad Cities. The soundtrack can be found at unitedwayqc.org. WQPT has a commitment to the military families in the cities. We call it Embracing the Military. And October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And one of the many events on Arsenal Island is Tuesday's Break a Sweat, Break the Cycle 1-mile walk and 3-mile run. The Victim Advocacy Program sponsors the run that starts at 6:30 in the morning at Memorial Park on the island. It's for soldiers, families, retirees, and civilians. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
A proud supporter of this program, Riverbend Food Bank's vision is a hunger-free Iowa and Illinois.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Whelan Presley Funeral Homes are located in Rock Island, Milan, and Reynolds, and are proud supporters of WQPT.